Welcome to Trump Tower. A Manhattan jury has observed Trump organizations responsible on a couple of costs of crook tax fraud and falsifying enterprise data related to a 15-year scheme to defraud tax government via way of means of failing to record and pay taxes on repayment for Pinnacle executives. Before we continue, please support us by clicking on the subscription button and turn on the notification bell for more reliable updates. The Trump Corporation and Trump Payroll Corporation had been observed responsible on all crimes they faced. Donald Trump and his family were not charged on this case, however the former president was mentioned repeatedly during the trial via way of means of prosecutors, approximately his connection to the benefits doled out to Sure executives, which includes organization-funded apartments, automobile rentals and private expenses. The Trump Organization ought to face a most of $1.61 million in fines when sentenced in mid-January. The organization isn't liable to being dismantled due to the fact there may be no mechanism below New York regulation that might dissolve the organization. However, a legal conviction ought to affect its potential to do enterprise or reap loans or contracts. The responsible verdict comes as Trump is below scrutiny via way of means of federal and kingdom prosecutors for his dealing with of categorized documents, the attempt to overturn the 2020 election results, and the accuracy of the Trump Organization's enterprise data and monetary statements. He is likewise going through a $250 million civil lawsuit from the New York legal professional Preferred alleging he and his person kids had been concerned in a decade-lengthy fraud. The legal professional Preferred is searching for to completely bar them from serving as an officer or director of an organization in New York Kingdom, amongst different penalties. Trump Org. Legal professionals stated they plan to appeal. This turned into a case approximately greed and cheating, stated Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg. The Trump Corporation and the Trump Payroll Corporation were given away with a scheme that provided high-stage executives with lavish perks and repayment at the same time as deliberately concealing the blessings from the taxing government to keep away from paying taxes. Today's verdict holds those Trump organizations responsible for their lengthy jogging crook scheme. CNN senior legal analyst and former U.S. Attorney Ellie Honig said Bragg's approach has been validated. Obviously, this is a setback for the Trump Org. A major setback for the Trump Org. You have now been found guilty of criminal acts. Criminal tax fraud, Honey told CNN's Victor Blackwell in Newsroom. It's also kind of a win for the Manhattan District Attorney, said Honig. Your theory that part of the earnings of employees, including Alan Weisselberg, was paid through fringe benefits to avoid tax liability, that theory has been proven correct. Prosecutor Joshua Steinglass told jurors in closing arguments that Trump explicitly sanctioned the tax fraud and asked them to dismiss the defense's argument that former CFO of the Trump Organization, Alan Weisselberg, was a rogue employee motivated by personal greed. Said the jury heard that on a whim, Trump agreed to pay private school fees for his Weisselberg grandchildren and signed a lease on an apartment in Manhattan to shorten the manager's journey. Trump personally signed his employees' Christmas bonus checks and initialed a memo cutting the salaries of other top executives, which prosecutors say suggests he knew all along about the fraudulent system. Prosecutors have claimed for years that top executives have deducted the amount of company-provided benefits from their reported salaries to avoid paying the necessary taxes. He pleaded guilty to 15 felonies for failing to pay taxes on $1.76 million sales. As part of your plea agreement, if the judge finds you have testified truthfully, you will be sentenced to 5 months in prison. Weisselberg. Why would a company whose owners were unaware of Weisselberg's personal tax returns be prosecuted for Alan Weisselberg's personal conduct over which she had no visibility or oversight? This case is unprecedented and legally incorrect, Nichols said in a statement. We will appeal this verdict. In his testimony, Weisselberg admitted that he should have paid taxes on the compensation, which totals about $200,000 in 1 year, including a luxury apartment at Manhattan overlooking the Hudson River, 2 Mercedes-Benz cars, parking, utilities, furniture and private school tuition for her grandchildren. He also testified that he paid himself and other executives bonuses as if they were independent consultants, allowing Trump companies to avoid paying taxes on their behalf. Weisselberg testified that he carried out the plan with the help of his subordinate, the controller of the Trump Organization, Jeffrey McConney. McConney, who was granted immunity to testify before the grand jury, admitted some of the illegal conduct in his testimony. After Trump was elected president, Weisselberg testified, there was a cleanup and many of the illegal practices stopped. He revealed conversations he had with Trump, Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr., but told the jury when questioned by Trump's lawyers that he had not plotted or conspired with anyone in the Trump family. Emotional at times, Weisselberg said the jury said he was embarrassed by his behavior and betrayed the Trump family, who have been his employers for 49 years. Prison sentence and his loyalty to the Trump family, who could pay him $1 million in compensation this year. To prove the company's guilt, prosecutors had to establish that either Weisselberg or McConney was a management agent who committed the crimes in the course of his employment and on behalf of the company. Prosecutors and defense attorneys went around in circles arguing about what "on behalf of" meant. Judge Juan Merchan also wrestled with how to explain the sentence to the jury, turning to two legal treatises to create a definition. Explaining this to the jury, the judge said, under the definition of "on behalf of," it is not required that the criminal activity actually benefits the company. However, an agent's actions are not on behalf of a company if they are carried out solely in furtherance of the agent's own interests. In other words, if the agent's actions were taken solely for personal gain, they were not acting on behalf of the company. Alan Futerfas, an attorney for Trump Payroll Corporation, told reporters after the verdict that the conclusion was wrong. During the experiment, a really interesting new topic emerged. Obviously, the definition of "on behalf of" is what that means. And we have submitted many documents, the defense team, about what those words mean, Futerfas said. The judge recognized that there were not many definitions in this regard, and that will certainly be one of the arguments we will make. Weisselberg walked a fine line in his testimony, telling jurors he never wanted to harm the company, that he was driven by greed, and that his primary goal was to pay less tax. But he also knew at the time that the company would benefit from his plans to a certain extent. In his testimony, Weisselberg said, "It was a benefit to the company, but mostly it was because of my greed." He told jurors that the company saved money by paying less tax on its unofficial compensation, affirming when asked by District Attorney Susan Hoffinger if, while his primary goal was to avoid taxes, he was also creating an advantage for the company. To an extent, yes, Weisselberg testified. Weisselberg said he and McConney knew at the time that the program would make the company pay less payroll taxes, though he said they never specifically discussed it. Trump's attorneys repeatedly argued to the jury that Weisselberg did it for Weisselberg to emphasize that he was motivated solely by personal greed. Under cross-examination, Weisselberg agreed that the decision not to pay taxes was his own and was made solely in favor of. "That was my intention," Weisselberg said when questioned by Trump's attorneys, "to benefit myself." Lawyers for Trump entities called only one fact witness, longtime real estate accountant Donald Bender of Mazars USA, who Trump dropped as a client earlier this year. Clearance of books, or he is said to have caught tax fraud and been accused of lying. When questioned by prosecutors, Bender testified that he trusted and depended on Weisselberg, who testified that he had covered up the illegal plan. Steinglass, the prosecutor, told the jury that Trump's companies were guilty and that the illegal scheme was concocted to give employees a higher net pay while at the same time making the Trump Corporation less costly to the authorities. Thanks for watching. Let us know your view in the comments section below.